They hid me from the wedding out of shame. You'll ruin the photos, they said. So I took back everything I funded. Now they're begging on their knees, Dad declared. Some individuals simply don't wish to see you. My sister announced. My ideal day requires only ideal people, so I took away their homes, vehicles, and bank accounts. Everything I'd been secretly financing for years. Now they come begging on their knees. My name is Nathan Matthews. I'm 28 years old. I was born with a birthmark covering about 40% of the left side of my face. Doctors call it a port wine stain, a deep red, raised mark that looks as if someone splashed wine across my cheek and temple. Growing up, kids called me pizza face or monster. But the harshest remarks always came from home. My parents, Robert and Ellen Matthews, made it clear from an early age that my appearance was a family embarrassment. My younger sister, Holly, now 25, learned to treat me the same way. While other families celebrated their children's accomplishments, mine focused on keeping me out of sight whenever possible. But here's the twist. No one knew I possessed exceptional aptitude with numbers and technology. While they were preoccupied with shame over my looks, I was quietly constructing a tech empire from my bedroom. It began in high school when I started trading cryptocurrency and developing applications. By college, I had launched 3 successful mobile apps generating substantial revenue. I graduated with a computer science degree and a net worth that would have stunned my family if they had ever bothered to inquire about my life. After college, I founded a fintech company specializing in automated investment software. Within 2 years, a major bank acquired us for $35 million. I retained 60% of the company, which amounted to $21 million. Combined with my earlier app earnings and shrewd cryptocurrency investments, my personal wealth reached $25 million by age 25. Did my family know? Of course not. They were too busy pretending I didn't exist to notice their disappointing son had become more prosperous than they could ever have imagined. Here's where the narrative becomes intriguing. Despite their treatment, I still cared for them. I know it sounds foolish, but I kept hoping that one day they would accept me for who I was. So, I started assisting them financially, always anonymously. When Dad's construction business struggled in 2019, I acquired $200,000 worth of contracts through a shell company and directed them his way. When Mom wished to expand her boutique but couldn't secure a loan, I arranged for a mysterious investor to provide the capital. When Holly graduated college in 2022 with immense student debt, I settled it through a fictitious scholarship fund I established. I purchased their homes through a property management company I owned, allowing them to reside there for significantly reduced rent, while believing they were getting an excellent deal from some generous landlord. I financed their vehicles through my own lending company, offering them incredible rates while they remained unaware of the source. For 3 years, from 2022 to 2025, I was their undisclosed benefactor. I observed from the shadows as they enjoyed comfortable lives, all while continuing to treat me as an embarrassment whenever I visited for holidays or family gatherings. The breaking point arrived 3 months ago, in March 2025, when Holly became engaged to her boyfriend, Brian, a middle manager at an insurance company. The family was overjoyed, and wedding preparations began immediately. I was excited too. Despite everything, I cared for my sister and wanted to be there for her important day. I had even intended to reveal the truth about my success, and perhaps use it to finally bridge the divide between us. But then came the family meeting. I'll never forget sitting in Mom and Dad's living room, the living room in the house I was secretly paying for, while they delivered the news that would alter everything. Nathan, Mom began, her voice adopting that familiar tone of disappointment I'd heard my entire life. We need to discuss Holly's wedding. What about it? I asked, genuinely perplexed. Well, Dad cleared his throat uncomfortably. We've been considering, and we've decided it would be best if you didn't attend the ceremony. The word struck me like a physical blow. What do you mean? Holly spoke up, her voice cold and unfeeling. Look, Nathan, I'm sorry, but this is my perfect day. I've envisioned this wedding since I was little, and everything needs to be absolutely flawless. And what does that have to do with me? I inquired, though I already knew the answer. Mom leaned forward, her face a mask of feigned sympathy. Honey, you must understand there will be photographers, videographers, hundreds of guests. You'll spoil the pictures. Some people just don't want to see you, Dad added bluntly. It's nothing personal, son, it's just, well, you know how you look. Holly nodded enthusiastically. Exactly. My perfect day requires perfect people only. I can't have my wedding photos ruined by your face. What would people think? I sat there in stunned silence. After everything I had done for them, after all the funds I had secretly channeled into their lives, this was how they repaid me. They weren't just excluding me from the wedding. They were telling me in the cruelest way possible that I wasn't good enough to be part of their flawless world. You could come to the reception, Mom offered as if this were some grand concession, but perhaps sit in the back, away from the main table, and definitely no photos. This is unbelievable, I managed to say. Come on, Nathan, Holly said, rolling her eyes. Don't be dramatic. It's just one day. You can't expect me to compromise my dream wedding, just because you're sensitive about your face. That's when something inside me snapped. Not the explosive fury you see in films, but something colder. A clarity I had never before experienced. I rose slowly, looking at each of them in turn. I understand completely, I said calmly. You're absolutely right. This should be a perfect day with perfect people only. They seemed relieved by my response, likely expecting me to retreat quietly, as I always had. I'm glad you understand, honey, Mom said, reaching out to pat my arm. I stepped back, avoiding her touch. Oh, I understand more than you know. I understand exactly what kind of people you are. With that, I departed. I drove home to my penthouse apartment, the one they'd never seen because they'd never bothered to visit me, and I began to strategize. The first thing I did was hire a private investigator to document everything. I needed a complete financial picture of their finances, their dependencies, and most importantly, proof of all the ways I had been supporting them. What I uncovered was even more extensive than I'd recalled. Over the past 3 years, I had purchased their 3 properties, Mom and Dad's house, Holly's condo, and Dad's commercial building for his business, for a total of $950,000. I had provided over $300,000 in business loans and contracts to Dad's construction company, invested $120,000 in Mom's boutique expansion, paid off $65,000 in Holly's student loans, financed all 6 of their vehicles through my lending company, maintained their excellent credit by ensuring all payments went through smoothly, and even covered Holly's $15,000 engagement ring through a jewelry store I had invested in. In total, I had supplied nearly $1.5 million in direct and indirect financial assistance to the family that was now telling me I wasn't worthy of attending a wedding. The irony was exquisite. The perfect lives they were so proud of, the success they flaunted, the comfortable lifestyle that allowed Holly to plan her dream wedding. It was all built on the generosity of the son they were ashamed to be seen with. I spent the next month meticulously orchestrating my response. This would not be a simple case of severing ties. This would be a systematic dismantling of the fabricated reality they had been inhabiting. First, I contacted all the vendors for Holly's wedding. The venue, the caterer, the photographer, the florist, the band. I had connections with all of them through my various business ventures. I didn't cancel anything or cause any immediate problems. I simply ensured that when the time came, payment issues would surface. Next, I initiated the legal process of reclaiming my properties. Since I owned their homes through my property management company, I had every right to terminate their leases or adjust the rental terms. I gave them proper legal notice. 60 days to either purchase the properties at fair market value or locate alternative housing. The business loans were more intricate, but I had documented everything correctly. Dad's construction company owed my investment firm nearly $200,000 in loans that had been deliberately structured with generous terms. It was time to call those in. For Mom's boutique, I exercised a clause in the investment agreement that allowed me to convert my loan into a controlling ownership stake if certain conditions weren't met. Since she had missed several reporting deadlines, which I had previously overlooked, I had grounds to assume control. The vehicles were the simplest part. I simply adjusted the loan terms to reflect market rates instead of the sweetheart deals I had been providing them. Their monthly payments would triple, and if they couldn't afford them, the cars would be repossessed. But I reserved the best for last. I had been quietly managing their personal finances through various investment accounts and trust funds. They believed they were merely fortunate with their investments, unaware that their financial advisor was actually working for me. I began the process of liquidating these accounts and transferring the funds, my funds, back to my personal holdings. The wedding was scheduled for Saturday, June 14, 2025. I timed everything to begin unraveling exactly 1 week prior. On Monday morning, June 7th, Holly called me hysterical. Nathan, something's wrong with the wedding payments. The venue is saying there's a problem with the deposit. I was sitting in my office, gazing out at the city skyline, feeling calmer than I had in years. That's terrible, Holly. What kind of problem? They're saying the credit card was declined, but that's impossible. I just used it yesterday. Have you checked your account balance? Of course Wait, hold on. I could hear her typing frantically. This can't be right. It says I only have $400 in my checking account. That's impossible. Maybe there's been some kind of mistake? I suggested helpfully. Have you called the bank? I'm calling them right now. She hung up and I couldn't help but smile. The first domino had fallen. Tuesday, June 8th brought a call from Dad. Nathan, I need your assistance with something. I'm experiencing some kind of issue with the business loans. The bank is saying I need to repay them immediately. How much do you owe, Dad? Almost $200,000. But the terms were supposed to be much more flexible. I don't understand what's happening. That sounds truly serious. Have you spoken to a lawyer? I can't afford a lawyer right now. Business has been slow, and with Holly's wedding expenses. Nathan, I know we don't always agree, but you're good with computers and numbers. Could you perhaps look into this for me? The audacity was astounding. The man who had told me just weeks ago that some people just don't want to see me was now asking for my help. I'll see what I can do, Dad. I lied smoothly. Wednesday, June 9th was Mom's turn. Nathan, honey, I'm in difficulty. The boutique's investor is attempting to take over my business. They're claiming I violated some terms of our agreement, but I never missed any payments. What kind of terms, Mom? Something about quarterly reports and business metrics, but nobody ever informed me about those. This investor has been so hands-off for years. I thought they didn't care about the details. Who is this investor anyway? I don't know. It's some company called Meridian Holdings. I never even met them. Everything was handled through lawyers and accountants. Meridian Holdings was one of my shell companies. I had chosen the name because it sounded official and corporate, never imagining that one day I'd be listening to my own mother complain about my business practices. That's genuinely concerning, Mom. You should definitely fight this. How can I fight it? I don't have money for lawyers, and if I lose the boutique, I don't know what I'll do. By Thursday, June 10th, the panic was reaching its peak. Holly called me in tears. Nathan, everything is falling apart. The wedding is in 3 days, and half the vendors are canceling because of payment issues. Mom and Dad are panicking about their business problems, and now they're saying they might lose their house too. What do you mean lose their house? The property management company that owns it is raising the rent to some absurd amount, like $4,000 a month. They can't afford that, and they're saying if we don't pay, we have to move out by the end of the month. That's terrible, Holly. What are you going to do about the wedding? I don't know. Brian's family is asking questions, and I'm too embarrassed to tell them what's happening. His parents already think our family is, well, they think we're not good enough for their son. The irony was so palpable I could taste it. Holly, who had spent her entire life believing she was superior to me, was now worried about not being good enough for someone else. Maybe you could postpone the wedding? I suggested. Postpone? Nathan, do you know how long I've been planning this? How much money we've already spent? I can't postpone my perfect day. But if you don't have the money to pay for it, there has to be another way. Maybe we could take out a loan, or ask Brian's parents for help, or... She was grasping at straws and we both knew it. Friday afternoon, June 11th, I received the call I had been anticipating. All three of them were on the line, Mom, Dad, and Holly, and they sounded desperate. Nathan, Dad began, his voice strained, we need to talk. Can you come over? Now, please? It's important. Before I agreed to meet them, I decided to do one final check on how my plan was progressing. I called my assistant, Megan, who had been helping coordinate the financial movements. How are things looking? I asked her. Everything is proceeding exactly as planned, Mr. Matthews, she replied. Megan was one of the few people who knew the full scope of what I was doing. The property notices have been served, the loan acceleration letters have been delivered, and the vendor payment issues are all in motion. Your family's credit scores have dropped significantly in the past week due to the missed payments and account closures and the wedding vendors. Most of them are panicking. The florist called 3 times today asking about payment. The catering company is threatening to cancel unless they receive full payment by tomorrow morning. The venue manager is considering releasing the space to another client. I felt a mix of satisfaction and something else, perhaps a tiny twinge of guilt. But then I remembered Holly's words. My perfect day needs perfect people only. The guilt evaporated. What about the financial accounts? I inquired. All investment accounts have been liquidated as requested. The funds are back in your primary holdings. Your family's total accessible assets are now less than $5,000 combined. Excellent. And the media coverage. This was a detail I hadn't mentioned to anyone. Through my connections in the local business community, I had arranged for a society reporter to attend Holly's wedding. The story was supposed to be a fluff piece about a beautiful local wedding. But if things went according to plan, it would become something much more interesting. The reporter is still scheduled to attend tomorrow's event, Megan confirmed. She's expecting to write about a fairy tale wedding, but she's also prepared to document whatever actually happens. Perfect. Thank you, Megan. I'll talk to you next week. After hanging up, I sat in my office for a few more minutes, looking at the photo on my desk. It was the only family photo I owned. A picture from Holly's high school graduation. In it, I'm standing slightly apart from the others, partially hidden behind Dad's shoulder. Even in family photos, they had ensured I was barely visible. I picked up the photo and studied their faces. Mom beaming with pride at Holly's accomplishment, Dad looking proud and successful in his best suit, Holly radiant in her cap and gown, the golden child who could do no wrong. And me, the shadow figure they barely acknowledged. Not anymore, I said to the photo, then placed it face down in my desk drawer. The drive to their house, my house, took about 20 minutes. As I drove through the neighborhood I had been secretly paying to maintain, I noticed things I had never paid attention to before. The manicured lawns, the expensive cars in the driveways, the general air of affluence that permeated the area. My money had made it possible for my family to live among these people, to feel like they belonged in this upper-middle-class bubble. I parked in the driveway and sat for a moment, mentally preparing myself for what was about to unfold. This was the moment I had been building toward for months, the moment when the people who had made me feel worthless would finally comprehend exactly what I was worth. As I walked up to the front door, I noticed that Dad's truck was looking a bit worn. The paint was fading, and there was a small dent in the front bumper. Without my financial support, they would soon discover that maintaining their lifestyle was much more expensive than they had realized. I rang the doorbell instead of using my key, a small gesture that felt symbolically important. I was no longer sneaking around, no longer the shameful secret. Today I was a visitor with power. I drove to their house, my house, taking my time. When I arrived, I found them sitting in the living room, looking as though they'd aged 10 years in 1 week. Holly's eyes were red from crying, Mom looked frantic, and Dad appeared to be on the verge of a breakdown. Nathan, thank goodness you're here, Mom said, jumping up to embrace me. For the first time in my life, she seemed genuinely happy to see me. I sat down across from them, maintaining a neutral expression. What's happening? Everything's falling apart, Holly said, her voice barely above a whisper. The wedding, the business, the house. It's all happening at once, and we don't understand why. It's like someone is deliberately sabotaging us, Dad added. But that's impossible, right? Who would do something like that? I looked at each of them, these people who had spent my entire life making me feel worthless, and I felt a strange sense of peace. That's a really good question, Dad. Who would do something like that? We were hoping you might have some ideas, Mom said. You're so smart with technology and business. Maybe you could help us figure out what's happening. And maybe help us fix it, Holly added. Hopefully. I know we haven't always been close, but you're still family. Family helps family, right? The word family hung in the air like a bad joke. These people who had excluded me from their perfect world were now desperate for my help. Let me make sure I understand, I said slowly. You want me to help you figure out who's sabotaging your lives? Yes, they said in unison. And you want me to help fix whatever is wrong if you can? Dad said. Nathan, I know I haven't been the best father to you. I know we've had our differences, but right now you're the only one who might be able to help us. Please, Nathan, Holly begged. I know what I said about the wedding was wrong. I was stressed and scared and I said terrible things, but I need your help. My wedding is tomorrow. I stood up and walked to the window, gazing out at the yard I had been paying to maintain. You know, it's amusing. A week ago, you told me I wasn't good enough to be part of your perfect day. You said I would spoil the photos. You said some people just don't want to see me. The room fell silent behind me. And now you're asking me to save that same perfect day. The irony is incredible, don't you think? Mom's face had gone pale. Nathan, what are you saying? I'm saying that sometimes the people who seem powerless aren't as powerless as you think. Dad stood up slowly. Nathan, what did you do? What did I do? I laughed and it felt good. Dad, I did exactly what you taught me to do. I took control of my own life. Holly was staring at me in horror. You're behind this? You're the one who's ruining everything. Ruining everything? I shook my head. Holly, I'm not ruining anything. I'm just taking back what was always mine. What do you mean? What was always yours? Mom demanded. I mean this house that you're so worried about losing? I bought it 3 years ago. The rent you've been paying? It's been going to me. Dad's business that's suddenly having loan problems? Those were my loans. Mom's boutique that's being taken over? That's my investment. Holly's student loans that mysteriously disappeared? I paid them. Your cars, your lifestyle, your comfortable little world? It's all been built on my money. The silence that followed was deafening. I watched as the realization dawned on their faces one by one. That's impossible, Dad whispered. Is it, Dad? Your construction business was failing 5 years ago. Do you remember getting those big contracts that saved you? The ones from that mysterious company that seemed to appear out of nowhere? That was me. I saved your business. But you don't have that kind of money, Mom protested weakly. Don't I? I pulled out my phone and showed them my bank account balance. I'm worth $32 million, Mom. I've been worth more than all of you combined since I was 25 years old. Holly was shaking her head. This is insane. You're lying. Am I? I walked over to my briefcase and pulled out a thick folder. Here are the property deeds for this house, Holly's condo, and Dad's commercial building. Here are the loan documents for Dad's business. Here are the investment agreements for Mom's boutique. Here are the payment records for Holly's student loans. My name is on every single document. I spread the papers out on the coffee table, and they stared at them in shock. For 3 years, I continued, I have been your anonymous benefactor. I've been the guardian angel you never knew you had. I've been supporting this family financially, while you treated me like a shameful secret. But why? Holly asked, tears streaming down her face. Because I loved you, I said simply. Despite everything you put me through, despite the way you made me feel about myself, I still cared for my family. I kept hoping that maybe one day you'd accept me for who I was. Nathan, Mom said, her voice breaking, we do love you. We've always loved you. No, you haven't. You've been ashamed of me my entire life. You hid me from your friends, made excuses for my absence at family events, and finally told me I wasn't good enough to attend my own sister's wedding. We made a mistake, Dad said desperately. We were wrong. We can fix this. Can you? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you only care about me now because you need something from me. Holly fell to her knees in front of me, literally begging. Nathan, please. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I was horrible to you and I know it, but please don't destroy my wedding. I'll do anything. Anything. I looked down at her. Will you tell all your friends and Brian's family the truth? Will you tell them that your perfect life has been funded by the brother you were too ashamed to invite to your wedding? She sobbed harder but nodded. Yes. I'll tell them everything. Will you acknowledge publicly that the man you called a monster has been more generous to you than you deserved? Yes, I promise. I looked at Mom and Dad. And what about you too? Are you ready to admit that you were wrong? Are you ready to treat me like an equal member of this family instead of a shameful secret? Yes, Mom said immediately. Nathan, we were terrible parents. We let our own fears and prejudices hurt you, and we're sorry. We'll do whatever it takes to make this right, Dad added. Just please don't destroy everything we've built. Everything you've built? I laughed bitterly. You didn't build anything. I built it. I paid for it. I made it possible. And now you're asking me to continue funding the lives of people who think I'm not good enough to be seen with them. That's not true anymore, Holly said, still on her knees. Please, Nathan. I know I don't deserve your help, but I'm begging you. Don't let my mistakes destroy everything. I looked at them for a long moment. These broken people who had shaped my entire life with their cruelty and rejection. Part of me wanted to walk away and let them face the consequences of their actions, but another part of me, the part that had been secretly supporting them for years, couldn't quite let go. Here's what's going to happen, I said finally. First, Holly, your wedding will proceed as planned. I'll ensure all the vendors are paid and everything runs smoothly. But there are conditions. Anything, she said quickly. I will be attending the wedding, not hidden in the back, not excluded from photos. I will be sitting in the front row as the brother of the bride, and I will be in every family photo. Of course. Yes. Absolutely. Second, you will introduce me to everyone as your successful entrepreneur brother. You will tell them about my business achievements, and you will make it clear that you're proud to be related to me. I will. I promise. Third, during your wedding speech, you will publicly acknowledge that I have been the anonymous benefactor who has been supporting this family for years. You will thank me for making your perfect day possible. Holly's face went white, but she nodded. I'll do it. I turned to Mom and Dad. As for you two, things are going to change. I'm not going to continue secretly funding your lives while you pretend I don't exist. From now on, our relationship will be honest and transparent. What does that mean? Dad asked nervously. It means you'll pay fair market rent for this house. Or you'll acknowledge that I'm your landlord and treat me with the respect that deserves. It means Dad's business will repay its loans according to a proper schedule, with interest. It means Mom will either buy out my investment in her boutique, or acknowledge me as her business partner. And if we agree to all this? Mom asked. Then we can try to rebuild our relationship as a real family, but it will be on equal terms. No more hiding, no more shame, no more treating me like a dirty secret. And if we don't agree? Dad asked quietly. Then you can figure out how to fund your own lives from now on. I'll reclaim my properties, call in my loans, and you can see how well you do without the support of the son you were ashamed of. They looked at each other, and I could see them calculating their options. Without my financial support, they would lose everything. Dad's business would fail, Mom's boutique would close, and they'd all be facing bankruptcy. We agree, Dad said finally. All of it. We agree to everything. Holly. I looked at my sister still kneeling on the floor. Yes, I agree, Nathan. I'm so sorry. I never knew. I never realized. You never bothered to find out. For 5 years you've been living a life I made possible, and you never once wondered where your good fortune was coming from. I know, and I'm ashamed, but I want to do better. I want to be a real sister to you. I helped her to her feet, and for the first time in years, I saw genuine remorse in her eyes. All right then. Let's see if you mean it. The next day, Saturday, June 14, 2025, was Holly's wedding, and it was everything she had envisioned. The venue was perfect, the flowers were beautiful, the food was exquisite, and I was there for all of it. I sat in the front row, wearing a custom-tailored tuxedo that likely cost more than most people's cars. When the photographer asked for family photos, I was front and center. When guests inquired who I was, Holly introduced me as her successful entrepreneur brother with genuine pride in her voice. The ceremony itself was beautiful. Holly looked stunning in her dress, a dress that, unbeknownst to most guests, I had ultimately paid for through the complex web of financial support I had been providing. As she walked down the aisle, I felt a complicated mix of emotions. Pride in how beautiful she looked, sadness for all the years we had lost, and a strange sense of vindication that I was finally here, visible, acknowledged. Brian's family had been curious about me during the pre-ceremony photos. His mother, Patricia, had asked Holly who I was, and for the first time in her life, Holly had introduced me with something approaching pride. This is my brother Nathan, she had said. He's a very successful entrepreneur. He's actually the one who made this whole wedding possible. I had seen the surprise in Patricia's eyes, followed by a kind of reassessment. She had probably expected Holly's family to be social climbers or people living beyond their means. She hadn't expected to meet a tech millionaire who looked like me. During the ceremony, I sat in the front row as promised, and I noticed something remarkable happening. Instead of people staring at my birthmark with discomfort or pity, they were looking at me with curiosity and respect. Word had spread quickly among the guests about who I was and what I had done for the family. The same physical features that had once made me a source of shame were now just part of the story of the generous, successful brother who had saved the day. During the reception, Holly gave her speech. She thanked the usual people. Her parents, her new husband, her friends. But then she looked directly at me. I also want to thank someone who has been more generous to our family than we deserved, she said, her voice carrying across the room. My brother Nathan has been our anonymous guardian angel for years. He's the reason I was able to afford this beautiful wedding, the reason my parents' business succeeded, the reason our family has been able to live comfortably. Nathan, I'm sorry it took me so long to recognize your generosity, and I'm ashamed that I ever made you feel unwelcome in our family. You're not just my brother, you're my hero. What happened next surprised everyone, including me. The society reporter I had arranged to attend approached me during the reception. Her name was Jennifer Mills, and she wrote for the local lifestyle magazine. Mr. Matthews, she said, I hope you don't mind, but I'd love to interview you about your business success and your family story. This is quite remarkable. A young entrepreneur who built a fortune while secretly supporting his family. Our readers would be fascinated. I glanced at Holly, who was nearby and had overheard. A week ago, she would have been mortified at the thought of a reporter writing about me in connection with her wedding. Now she looked hopeful. I think that would be wonderful, she said to Jennifer. Nathan's story deserves to be told. The interview took place right there at the reception, with family members and guests gathering around to listen. Jennifer asked thoughtful questions about my business journey, my challenges growing up with a facial difference, and my decision to support my family anonymously. What made you continue helping them, even when they had hurt you? She asked. Love doesn't always make sense, I replied. Sometimes you care for people not because they deserve it, but because you choose to. I chose to care for my family even when they couldn't care for me back the way I needed. And how do you feel now that everything is out in the open? I looked around at my family, at the wedding guests who were listening intently, at the beautiful venue that I had saved from cancellation. I feel like I finally belong somewhere, I said. For the first time in my life, I'm not concealing who I am or what I'm capable of. This is what acceptance feels like. The room erupted in applause, and I felt something I hadn't experienced in years. Acceptance. These people, mostly strangers, were applauding me not despite my appearance, but because of my character and achievements. Later that evening, as the reception was winding down, Mom and Dad approached me. "Nathan," Mom said, tears in her eyes, "I know we can't undo the past, but I want you to know that I'm proud of you. I'm proud of the man you've become, and I'm ashamed of the mother I've been." "We both are," Dad added. "You accomplished things we never imagined possible, and instead of celebrating you, we made you feel like you had to hide. That's on us, not you." "I appreciate that," I said, "but words are easy. I need to see changes." "You will," Mom promised. "Starting tomorrow, things will be different." And they were. Over the following months, my relationship with my family transformed completely. Dad restructured his business loans and began repaying them responsibly, while acknowledging me as his creditor and business advisor. Mom brought me on as an official partner in her boutique, and my business expertise helped her expand more successfully than she'd ever imagined. Holly and I developed a genuine sibling relationship for the first time in our lives. She started including me in family gatherings, introducing me to her friends, and genuinely seeking my advice on important decisions. Her husband, Brian, initially shocked by the revelations at the wedding, came to respect and admire me. But the most significant change was in how they spoke about me to others. Instead of hiding my existence, they began bragging about their successful son and brother. Mom would showcase my business achievements to her friends, Dad would tell his contractor buddies about his genius son, and Holly would post photos of us together on social media with captions about how proud she was of her big brother. The irony wasn't lost on me. The same people who had once been ashamed to be seen with me were now using my success to elevate their own social standing. But I didn't mind because for the first time it felt like genuine pride rather than exploitation. 6 months after the wedding, we had a family dinner at a restaurant, something that would have been unimaginable before, since they would never have risked being seen with me in public. As we sat around the table, laughing and talking like a normal family, Holly raised her glass. "I want to propose a toast," she said, "to Nathan, who taught us that real perfection isn't about how you look. It's about who you are and how you treat the people you love. Nathan, you're the most perfect person I know, and I'm fortunate to be your sister." As I looked around the table at these people who had once rejected me, I realized that my revenge had accomplished something I hadn't expected. I hadn't just gotten payback for their cruelty. I had forced them to confront their own prejudices and grow as people. They had tried to exclude me from their perfect world because they thought I would ruin it. Instead, I had shown them that their world was only perfect because I had been making it so all along. And in doing so, I had finally found my place in the family I'd always wanted to belong to. The best revenge, I learned, isn't destroying the people who hurt you. It's showing them exactly what they lost when they chose to push you away, and then having the grace to welcome them back when they finally realized their mistake. But I also learned something else. Sometimes people need to lose everything to understand what truly matters. My family had to face the prospect of losing their comfortable lives before they could recognize the value of the son and brother they had been taking for granted. Today, almost a year later, our relationships are stronger than they've ever been. We have honest conversations about everything, including my appearance and how their treatment of me affected my life. They've even joined me in supporting organizations that help children with facial differences, striving to ensure other families don't make the same mistakes they did. Holly recently asked me to be the godfather to her first child, and both Mom and Dad have publicly acknowledged me as their business partner and financial advisor. The shame they once felt about my appearance has been replaced by genuine pride in my accomplishments and character. Looking back, I realized that the worst thing about being hidden from that wedding wasn't the exclusion itself. It was the message it conveyed about my worth as a person. By forcing them to acknowledge my value, I didn't just get revenge, I got something much better. I got my family back. And sometimes that's the most perfect ending of all. Final update. Posted 3 months later. Many people have been asking for an update, so here it is. Holly just had her baby, a beautiful little girl named Grace. When I first held my niece, Holly said something that brought tears to my eyes. "I hope she grows up to be as strong and kind as her uncle Nathan." The transformation in my family has been remarkable. Dad's business is now flourishing under my guidance, and he's even hired me as an official consultant. Mom's boutique has expanded to 3 locations, and she introduces me as her business partner to everyone who will listen. But the biggest change has been in family gatherings. Last month we had a barbecue at my house. Yes, they finally visited my penthouse for the first time. As I watched my family enjoying themselves in my home, laughing and playing with baby Grace, I realized that my revenge had given me something I'd never had before. A family who was genuinely proud to know me. Holly framed one of our wedding photos. The one where we're all together smiling with me right in the center. She keeps it on her mantle and tells everyone who visits the story of how her amazing brother made her perfect day possible. Sometimes the best revenge is simply living well and forcing people to recognize what they almost lost. In attempting to conceal me from their perfect world, they nearly lost the person who was making that world possible. Now they know better, and so do I. I'm not the same person who was excluded from a wedding a year ago. I'm stronger, more confident, and surrounded by people who value me for who I am. And sometimes when I look in the mirror, I can see past the birthmark to the person I've become. Someone who fought for his place in the world and won. That's the true victory. Not the money, not the business success, not even the apologies. It's the knowledge that I'm finally living the life I deserve, surrounded by people who are proud to call me family. And for the first time in my life, that feels absolutely complete.